Where did it all start? Like all good British things, it started in a bar in the Tottenham Court Road after a NAT AMC meeting. Some guys got together and said that the RAF training system had to do something different. Now at that time, they were looking at replacing the Jet Provost, and a project called SP117 was launched as a brochure within Hawker Siddeley. However, at that same time, the Jaguar, against an earlier AST, was selected for the advanced training role. It became very apparent that the two-seat Jag was going to be very complex, very expensive, and not suitable for the advanced training role. So Hawker Siddeley were persuaded to launch a PV private venture program, which later became the HS1182. During that period, there was a number of configurations looked at, 20 or so involved, some of which were quite wacky, as you can see there, twin engines, side-by-side, and tandem seating. Very busy time, completely funded by Hawker Siddeley. Here you see that development process going through with the HS1182, and you can see the guys. What was prevalent and lessons learned from the NAT was the rear visibility from the QFI in the back with the pupil in the front. So you wanted to see if anybody sat in a NAT. You can't see out the back, and you can't see forward for sure. So a great emphasis was placed on that and cockpit layout, as you can see there. Interestingly enough, I think the middle picture shows it had a Folland, originally the Hawk, or the HS1182 had the Folland 4GT seat in it. For commonality later on with the Tornado and the Jaguar, the Royal Air Force wanted, after contract award, it to be fitted with Martin Baker seats, which was a good omen because it actually lengthened the cockpit, front and rear, 9 inches in each. Crucial to the development of the Hawk, or the HS1182 as it was then, was wind tunnel testing. And this is where some aerodynamic undesirables were found between the air intake and the wing route. You can see there the models. Hatfield wind tunnel was used, and the vertical wind tunnel in Lille in France. Many papers were put together and given to the RAF, and as it was, MOD-PE. There you can see the layouts of the aeroplane as it was being developed. Interesting features are an arrestor hook. For those that know the T2 Harrier, the front cockpit arrangement is very similar, and most noticeably was the program. Okay? Now the program on the far right there showed that the first aeroplane would be built in 21 months. Remember that? So, to pay for it, clearly the RAF requirement wasn't going to be enough. So Hawkers went out on an export campaign, and there was a team sent to Australia, where you can see this model, which I actually have today, less the Australian markings, went to sell it to Australia. First time round they didn't buy it, but the offset program for enticing the Australians was to build all the RAF wings. They didn't buy it, so the wings were built in the UK. Airsoft requirement 397. That was the specification written by MOD-PE, which was the competition that was set for then BAC and Hawker Siddeley. Clearly Hawker Siddeley offered the HS1182, and BAC tried to win the competition with the P59. History will tell us that the Hawk won, or the HS1182 won, so it was awarded in October 71 and fully ratified in March of 72. It was to be a fixed price contract for 176 aeroplanes. AVP 970, or DevStan 970 as it is today, was to be the baseline, and there were 11 performance guarantees. And that's the layout of the aeroplane. More like the Hawk that you see today. You can see the layout, and the engine that was selected was the Rolls-Royce Adore engine. Everybody says, what's so special about the 1182 AJ? Well, many configurations of the engine were looked at with LARSAC and other types. It simply means that the HS 1182 Adore engine was selected in July. That's the only reason for the J. Post-contract award, there you can see the Hawk design team. Gordon Hudson was appointed Chief Designer and Gordon Hodson Assistant Chief Designer. No confusion. There you can see Kingston Experimental in 1972. Quite a mature wooden mock-up where you can see the layout of the cockpit and equipments. Detail manufacture actually started in 1972. So there was a lot of PV money and funding done by Hawker Siddeley prior to contract award to enable detail manufacture to commence. And there you see the first metal one, the space model. And in 1973, August the 3rd, the Hawk was formally named by the RAF as being the next trainer. So that's where Hawk got its name from. There was a competition, and in fact it was John Langer that wrote that paper there into the top brass of MOD, and he was sort of the winner of the competition stroke selection. As you can imagine, there was many names thought of it, like Harrow, Tearsall, Dolphin. Yeah, they were the names that were going around at the time. But Hawk is most correct. The unsung heroes of any program is all the test articles. So there you can see the actual testing for MDC, the miniature detonating cord, the Rolls-Royce engine test bed there that you see on the second, static strength and flutter, Iron Bird for hydraulics and fatigue test, and you can see some of the ejection trials there at the bottom. Now, these pictures are actually 154 in manufacture. So there you can see it is line build 312001, and you can see the various sub-assemblies and sections being put together. And they are actually, in my investigations, 154. Around Hawker Siddeley, all contributing sites, and this is Hamble down near Southampton, and they were known for their canopies. You can see here Hawk canopies being moulded in a Nissan hut. I can say today with some authority that's somewhat automated and less people required to form the canopy. But early Hawk canopies were formed like this. There you have the wing, and the bottom right picture is the tailplane. Again, actual pictures of the first wing that was to fly. And not many people realise the wing started life at Hatfield. The tooling and initial detail manufacture was done at Hatfield. That's Hawker Siddeley Hatfield. And then during and before the first build of the first wing, in the duplex jigs that you see there, it was transferred to Brough, where Brough is known for manufacture of Hawk wings in particular, and later in the Hawk's career, the entire aeroplane. This was Kingston's experimental, and you can see there the other fuselages coming down the line. The space model is the painted one at the end. You have the fatigue model, static, and 156 coming along the line there. And you can see lots of people with the rigs, etc., hydraulic testing and putting the aeroplane together. I hear you say, why is it painted now? And they painted all the sub-assemblies as they came together because it saves a couple of weeks at the end. Such was the determination to hit the date. And there you see the delivery of 154's fuselage from Kingston Experimental. The guy walking across, you will have known him, is Roy Adolphus, and you've got Percy Colino, Phil Mould, Andy Greens at the back, and they're all enthusiastically working to get the lorry delivered to Dunsfold. And there is footage of it going down the road to Dunsfold for all our archive people. The wing was a final fit on the 30th of July, and this was the scene in the flight shed down at Dunsfold. And again, you can see a group of people enthusiastically working on the aeroplane. Big day, rollout, and you can see there the 12th of August, and this is rolled out in front of the world's press, and even the children's comic took a light to the Hawk on its front cover, Look and Learn, which is a phrase I use quite a lot today with the use of 154. But there you can see it being towed out for the public's gaze. First engine run, you can see it being put into the engine pen on the 14th of August. Remember that day. Frank Ashley was the guy that ran the engine, or ran the Adore engine, in a Hawk 154 for the first time. And these are actual pictures of it in the engine run pen. 20th of August, high-speed taxiing. Duncan Simpson was in it, and this is the first time the aeroplane had moved under its own power. So you can see there high-speed testing and brake temperatures and things like that done. This is all, by the way, silent videoed by Dunsfold Flight Test. It's where these clips come from. And then, of course, you have the first flight. Duncan Simpson, airborne for 53 minutes, taking off from Dunsfold in the evening. And it's a copy of Duncan's logbook there that you can see. Again, two chase aeroplanes. There was John Farley in GVTOL with John Twiddell in the back as a photographer, and a pinched Hunter from Boscombe with Andy Jones flying it, and Forrest Davey was the photographer in the back. We also flew on behalf of Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund first day covers. You don't see so much of it today, but it was an attempt to raise money, indeed it did, for the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund. There's a common theme in that as we go through these slides. Just a good shot, first flight. Lack of aerials, you'll note, inboard big fence, the spin parachute on the back with a thin strake and a lower fuel vent pipe is the most noticeable differences to the aeroplane. And of course, on way to Farnborough, the usual photograph, had to complete 10 flights, and this is the 10th flight going to Farnborough. Those that probably, I reckon half of the people here probably at Farnborough saw it. There you can see the aeroplane at Farnborough, 1974, flew in on the 29th of August, and you can see it was a typical Farnborough with the rain, and a rather big draggled Raymond Baxter there interviewing Duncan Simpson. The aeroplane remained serviceable throughout, and it flew every day. Post Farnborough, it did a very short layup, but not long, and then Andy Jones took it supersonic on the 26th of February. So Hawk in a dive is supersonic, depends whether you're selling on behalf of the company, 1.2 or 1.17, depending which conversation you are, self-limiting. So it is supersonic. What did 154 do in the program? It did a lot of aerodynamics and loads work, and there you can see some of the configurations it flew in. The strake and everything is very well documented, and a lot of tufting was done, a lot of experimental done with longitudinal stability, and also the phantom dive it developed, which was found very early on, which necessitated the full span vane to be cut back so that the tailplane maintained control, shall we say. What happened to the cutout? Wow! Dunsfold fitters, ever resourceful, and the Rage was doing 24-hour lawnmower racing at Whisper Green. And you can see there the waste part, shall we say, of the cutout vane on top of a lawnmower. I'm not quite sure what it would achieve, but it was there nevertheless. Less known was the undercarriage door stiffness, and there you can see 154 doing some trials at various speeds, and the door gapped and had to be stiffened, and in fact 154 today has got one door of one standard and one of another. But there you can see some of the photographs that were taken to understand what was going on. Simple fix was stiffen the door. Another thing that cropped up late in the test program was icing in the flap and the flap vane. And this is 154 again in the blower tunnel at Boscombe, blowing some cold dry ice over it. 6 aeroplanes were in the development program, and you can see there listed 4 were for the HSA and 2 were given to A2E2 to support the development flying. This is a bit of an ironic tale. 156 went to Malta in 1976 for hot weather trials. Yeah, it was hotter in the UK. Never mind. And then the other extreme, with the support of Boscombe, 156 was packed up and taken to Cold Lake in Canada. And there you can see the folks doing some of the trials. We believe that's Roger Beasley in the aeroplane and Jerry Smythe in the little bobble hat, for those that you know those people. And just a picture, rather good one, going over Cold Lake with 156. 156 today is on a pole outside RAF Valley. Part of the contract was to maintain the aeroplane in fixed times against benchmarks that were used against the Gnat and the Hunter. So to change an engine in a Hawk, in total, was 500 man-minutes. And you get to the acceptance of 162. So there you can see John Glasscock handing over the aeroplane to the RAF with 162, which was the first, along with 163 in fact, which was the first aircraft delivered to the Royal Air Force on the 4th of November. Ironically and also sadly, 156 was the last, I'm going to say, in-service aeroplane to go to short reef for storage, because it left Boscombe down in the 30th of March 2022 and formed part of the RTP programme. Been very fortunate at BDAC, we have the fin off that aeroplane, which ironically again the 731 tells me it was the first fin fitted to 156. So a very historical fin, not only because it's got the 9G and the Institute of Aviation Medicine on it, but it was on 162 and 156. This is quite remarkable. This was a document produced on the day, so you had your ideas in the bar in the Tottenham Court Road. 7.5 years later, the first student's gone solo in a Hawk. Remarkable. And there you see the production line, both at Brough and in fact at Dunsfold, that is. That was the company's explanation document of where components were built. First off, I have to say that throughout the life of the Hawk, it's gone worldwide of where it's produced. And it's quite remarkable how the aeroplane is being produced worldwide. Where did they all go? Obviously Valley, Broady, Chibnall. This is coming out of Hawker Siddeley Bitterswell, where the Red Arrows conversions were done, and at Kemble, and also on the day there were aeroplanes allotted to Boscombe and A2E2. What happened to 154? Didn't get delivered until January 82. And there you can see the aeroplane. The top left picture I find interesting because you can see the strain gauging on it. And I was at Dunsfold, now I remember back, and thinking how tatty the aeroplane looked on its delivery flight to Lambeda. So it chased Jindovics, and you can see there the other aircraft that accompanied 154 chasing Jindovics. Shepherding, I think is the word, Jindovics. So there, people that have worked at St Athan, you can see when the aeroplane was in St Athan for modification upgrade and also for its first major. And it celebrated 25 years at Lambeda, or first flight, and again we fly some envelopes. 2000 October, the aeroplane leaves Lambeda, and Lambeda was being closed, and it came to Boscombe. And it came in a raspberry ripple colour, as you can see at the front. It didn't go black until 205, and then the Griffin on the back and ETPS was added in the July of 2014 in readiness for REACT. So there you can see some pictures of 154 at Boscombe. Now the next pictures, I'm not going to talk, I'll go through them. They were taken by Jamie Hunter on the 40th anniversary. I'll just let you look at the pictures. That's one of my favourite. That's off the Needles, obviously, I like it, yeah. Little bit of a sortie, coming back round over Boscombe, turning over the main gate area, and coming into land. There you go. Fantastic pictures, though. So, what do you have? You had a team with a vision and a determination to succeed. The first of the many was true. There was 1,037. Maybe 39, we're trying to clarify that, but 1,037 aircraft built, and cut metals from 72 and manufacture stocked in 22. So literally 50 years of manufacture. And from 1974 to last year, I've called it 50 years of Hawk innovation. Because the whole principle of the Hawk, whilst it's a simple aeroplane, was through life development. And that was seen at day one with a group of people that knew you could develop the aeroplane. And in fact, in I think it's July 2006, the T1 fleet only clocked up 1 million hours. And that's what the celebration is on the far slide. The day had to come, didn't it? The last hole on the old course was the badge of ETPS that year. This is where the military operation of aeroplanes was going to change to civil, and 3 Hawks were put up for disposal, and you can see this is the takeoff of the last flight. It was done by Dave Southwood, and Group Captain Littlejohn was riding shotgun. And of course, the last landing. Very quickly, the aeroplane came up for disposal. And it was quick. And there you can see it clocked up 5,917 hours. Well, the Hawk design criteria on the original design was 6,000 hours and 15,000 landings. I don't think anybody could tell me the first of a type had clocked up its design prescribed hours and almost its landings. The landings, there were 50% rollered and 50% braked. Quite remarkable. Hawk T1, just for information, can go to 12,400 hours now. There's 2 mods, rear fuse and another wing. And all the Flying Hawks today have been modded. So they're of a 12,000 hour machine. Right, so the aeroplane's up for disposal and there was a bidding process. And somebody tipped me off and I joined the bidding process, with the expectation of brokering a deal with the aeroplane to ensure its security for the future, thinking that it's quite an important airframe. It took many twists and turns, and we gave the project a number P10, which is simply 1 + 5 + 4. So in my little group, or me and a couple of other people, we talked about P10, not about 154. We eventually came to a point where we had to start bidding for the aeroplane. So there was nobody particularly interested in it, other than people that wanted to break it for spares and the Americans. So I put in a bid for it to keep it alive, to try and save it. And there was a small delay because MOD and BAE Systems took another look at the aeroplane and thought they might want it back. I guess history tells us that I won that commercial proposal. So I all of a sudden became the owner of a Hawk. Then we had to move it. This is where it gets interesting. So I contacted a few people, a few exercises, and we set up a program with the view of moving the Hawk underneath the Chinook. We had 8 technical meetings. I was SME Hawk, I have to say, during the process, I learned an awful lot about the Chinook. You know, low speed, single engine failure, all this sort of stuff was looked at. CG of Hawk, moment, etc. And in the weighbridge hangar, I have to say, Kinetic were very supportive. We checked the weight and balance for real. And at the same time we were doing this, 28 Squadron, who'd been tasked from RAF Odeon to do the move, were propping up the weighing dam. So, oh, is this going to continue? Are we going to be able to do it? Because I set a date. The date to move the aeroplane was the 45th anniversary of first flight. So we planned it. We had, obviously, Boscombe, well-controlled airspace, and we were going to move it to Old Sarum. There you can see the planning and the flight route that we were taking to Old Sarum. We started off calling it the drop point at Old Sarum, but we then decided it was better to call it the delivery point. Yeah. And again, common feature, some of those envelopes that had previously been flown on the first flight, the RAF flew me in a Hawk on the 40th anniversary. We flew more envelopes, and some of the envelopes that we had left from those activities were placed into 154 to raise money for the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund. So we're connecting it up. Steve Austin wanted to connect it, boss man at Boscombe, and there you can see us connecting the strops. Great care was taken on protecting the aeroplane, and in fact the chains were laced with what I can only call is thick carpet felt, so that we wouldn't damage the airframe, and the canopy was covered with a paper called 20B, Protex 20B, so that they wouldn't chafe the canopy. Big day arrives. Here's the Chinook. Now, to do this and all the rest of it, we had the Army were the contracting arm, the RAF were bringing the Chinook to the party, and the Royal Navy, part of JAD2, were the riggers. Okay, so we had a tri-service exercise here, and some trainees on the day. They brought 2 bus loads down from RAF Benson to witness a real live exercise. There you see a rather strange sight, the Chinook leaving Boscombe for the last time with a Hawk underneath. Arriving at Old Sarum, there you can see it arrives the loadmaster that you can see there guiding the Chinook. There you see final touchdown. It was great. Main wheels touched first, followed by the nose wheel. It did spin in the reflection of the Chinook a little bit, but we backed off, and another Chris, funnily enough, was the pilot, and we landed, and you can see how it was landing. The G meters inside registered half a G. Very benign landing. There you can see landing on, and from the Chinook looking at the Hawk. And the Chinook departs after picking up some of the strops. Yeah, there you can see tying it off Old Sarum. Hadn't seen a Hawk before, and a happy owner, and I think the young lad liked the spectacle as well. We made the press big time. It got page 3 in the Telegraph, I think it was, and you can see South Today also participated. And if it will work, here we go. Now the lady, Charlotte Hopkins, she was a trainee. There was a lot of emphasis on training during this period, and she's subsequently been all over the world, but that was the first live operation she'd been the photographer for. Yeah, she's made a career out of it. Now we have a Hawk Old Sarum. What do we do with it? Set about engineering it, looking at it, getting ground support equipment, and the bits and pieces you knew. We happened to fall upon some pylons, etc., and gun pods, and dare I say engines. So we brought it back to life. So clearly, first off was the electrics. So we had some work to do, but we brought it back. I have to say, the aeroplane in essence was in very good order. But there was still a fair amount of work needed with replacement of LRUs and sorting out snags, etc. So we got the electrics to work. Then we got hydraulic system number 1 to work, so we could move the flying controls, those slowly, but we could move them, and obviously bring the undercarriage up. And then we thought we could start the GTS, so we got the gas turbine starter to run it 3 or 4 times. During this period, we're obviously showing it to the public as a look and learn task, young and old, etc., to be around a live aeroplane. We also did a TV program with Fred Dinage and Mandy Hickson. She was the second Tornado female pilot, did 2 tours in Afghanistan, and she today does motivational speeches, only lives in Winchester. We operated the aeroplane for night shoots, etc., and we used it for photographic opportunities for promoting companies, etc., and they're Tim Wallace's photographs. We also introduced old friends back to it. So this guy, David Simons, was the project pilot for Hawk back in 1974. And the picture on the left was when he had a ride in the back of 154. Bit of a story there. Hawker Siddeley were keen on promoting it for foreign export sales, as you could imagine. So the RAF panicked somewhat because the first export customer, or potential customer to fly the Hawk, was Egyptian. How about that? So David Simons was given a ride, and there you can see him in the back seat of a Hawk. And many decades later, you can see him sitting in the front seat of the Hawk in October of 22. Other acquaintances, second pilot to fly the Hawk was Andy Jones. And there you can see a picture of him in 74 and a picture of Andy today. His comment was, there's rather more dials in it today than there was originally. And then known to us today, and also volunteered down at BDAC, is Dave Southwood. He was the last captain to fly 154. Now, what do we do next? We'll fit the engine. So 31st of May last year, you can see us fitting the engine into 154. And I'll press the button in a minute. I had an ambition to run it 50 years to the day, almost to the hour, when Frank Ashley ran it in the first time. This is that video. It is the first. Watch the smoke and watch the flame. Yes. It's quite normal on inhibited engines because the stuff on the internet isn't correct, but this is, I can guarantee, the first engine run that I did in 154. So we're on the airfield at Old Sarum, flying for the day had finished, and of course parachuting. GTS running. Here we go, manual start. Sequence. There's a smoke also playing. So nice shutdown, Chris, of the GTS, and now the main engine running. I didn't think you wanted to hear that much longer. But it had all the distinctive hallmarks of Hawk. And to be honest, did we have any snags? Yes, we did. Generator didn't come online, and Hyde 2 didn't pressurise. Generator was a DC reset fuse blown, and well, I did replace the pump on Hyde 2, but I think the main problem was still air in Hyde 2, to be quite frank. And I have to say at this stage, without the, let's call it encouragement from John Sharp at BDAC and Ron, who's here today, in encouraging me to do this. Shall we say that? And there's the picture of the first and the last Hawk. I have to say it's a CGI picture, but you can see we took 154 at BDAC. And that's clearly the last Qatari aeroplane on British BAE Systems Western Runway at Wharton. Had to do some memorabilia, didn't I? So all purchasable at Boston Down Aviation Collection. So we got some squadron prints, mugs. Airfix were great. We did a first and last club edition. Corgi, likewise, I have to thank them for doing a metal die cast. We have a local artist that can do some children's photographs, and there you can see some of the different mugs that we put together, all to raise money for the right causes. Now then, the 50th anniversary was last year, and I actually had commissioned by myself and Paul Cooper, who's the artist, because you'll see, and somebody might correct me here, there are no pictures of first flight on the south side looking north. They are all north side looking south. So I had this commissioned, which is unmistakably Dunsfold, of 154's first flight with G VTOL in the circuit and the Hunter catching up behind. And to celebrate, we had a gathering of employees, ex-employees and enthusiasts that you can see with 154 being rolled out there, and we did a second engine run, which I have to say the generator came online there, but you can see there, and again the Dunsfold test film we played throughout, which is silent, which as most test films were on the day. And also on the day, quite by chance this came about. So as everybody knows, Duncan Simpson did the first flight. Well, John Simpson's his son and his two grandchildren, we sat them in it. Valley, they put 2 Hawks out for 50, and the employees, both RAF and mainly BAE Systems employees that are stationed at RAF Valley. So there you have it, an iconic Hawk, 154. I believe it's for national interest, and it's a benchmark aircraft. There you have it. Now what I intend to do, I note the intent, there's going to be 3 series. So there's this presentation, there will be Hawk, T1 through life and export, and don't forget the T45, which will still be in American service until at least 2045. So that was the overall biggest Hawk contract ever. The biggest Hawk contract in a single stroke of the pen was buying 176 T1 aeroplanes. There you have it, Hawk.